at dawn, Jesus appeared again in the temple courts where all the people gathered around him, and he sat down to teach them. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman has been caught in the act of adultery. In the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. Now, what do you say?" They were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis of accusing him. The Pharisees had concocted this elaborate scheme to try and trick Jesus. So here he is, and he's teaching, and these guys come in and just put down this flagrant trap. You see, they had brought a person caught in the act of adultery, and according to Mosaic law, it dictated that this person be stoned until dead as a consequence of their adultery. And Jesus, claiming to be God, could not just stand by and either ignore Mosaic law or ignore this person that had been so crafted in God's image. This moment, though, has nothing to do with the lady caught in adultery. All this is a trap to get Jesus to contradict and go against both Mosaic and Roman law. But what he did next surprised every person there. Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." And again, he stooped down and wrote on the ground. People like to speculate on what it is they believe Jesus wrote in the ground. And honestly, as an omniscient God, it could be anything. It could have been names, dates, times, or even things people have done. And the Bible doesn't comment as to exactly what Jesus put down. But whatever Jesus put, it was so incredibly cutting and convicting that every person there began to get uncomfortable to even be there. At this, those who had heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left, and the woman still standing there. And Jesus straightened up, and Jesus asked her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, sir," she said. "Then neither do I condemn you," Jesus declared. "Go now and leave your life of sin." And as Jesus stood there, he didn't try and give excuses as to, well, she might have done this because of this, or justify the behavior, but instead he stood there, stared at her, and got to the core of her person, standing there embarrassed and alone and ashamed, and chose in that moment to give her grace. He chose to stare at this person not as an adulteress, but as a child of God, created in the image of God. Out of every person in that crowd that could have thrown stones at her until she was dead, the only person who could have condemned her instead chose to stare at her and tell her, "I do not condemn you." And this woman is not alone either. All of us have those things and those moments and those activities that God could have easily carved out into dirt and stared at us about. All of us have things that all of us have been caught in and done that even all of us understand, oh, this is not God's best or plan in my life. However, Jesus did not come to this planet to condemn us, but instead to provide us a way into eternity based in his love and his grace and mercy. We have been given grace by a holy God. And just as God gave grace to that woman, God also gives that grace to us. And all of us have been changed and transformed by that grace. And our hearts are are being constantly churned up and being made new. And there's change there. As God comes in and changes things and stirs things up, it's in a grace after grace after grace to chase after God every day. And to be able to stand there as Jesus stares at us and tells us, neither do I condemn you. Now go and leave your life of sin.